Thousands of years ago, when humanity was still navigating the mysteries of existence, symbols became a universal language, a way to communicate ideas that transcended spoken words. Among these symbols, few have endured as powerfully or pervasively as the all-seeing eye. Its origins trace back to ancient civilizations, where it first emerged not as a harbinger of conspiracy or control but as a sacred emblem of divine protection and cosmic order. To understand its roots, we must journey into the sands of time, to the banks of the Nile, under the shadow of pyramids, and amidst the rituals of one of history's most fascinating cultures. The Eye of Horus, guardian of balance in ancient Egypt, the concept of an all-seeing entity manifested in the form of the Eye of Horus, also known as the Wedjat. This iconic symbol represented more than just vision, it embodied protection, healing, and justice. To the Egyptians, eyes were not merely organs for sight, they were conduits of spiritual energy, capable of perceiving both physical and metaphysical truths. The myth behind the Eye of Horus is as compelling as the symbol itself. According to legend, Horus, the falcon-headed god associated with kingship and the sky, lost his left eye during a fierce battle with Seth, the chaotic force of destruction. In some versions of the tale, Thoth, the god of wisdom, restored the eye, imbuing it with magical properties. From then on, the Eye of Horus became synonymous with restoration and wholeness, often depicted in amulets worn by pharaohs and commoners alike. It wasn't just decoration, it was believed to ward off evil spirits, heal ailments, and ensure safe passage into the afterlife, but there's another layer to this story. The Eye of Horus wasn't static, it evolved over centuries, taking on new meanings while retaining its core symbolism. For instance, the eye's intricate design mirrored mathematical precision, reflecting fractions used in measurements, like dividing grain or land. This dual role, as both a mystical talisman and a practical tool, demonstrates how deeply intertwined spirituality and daily life were in ancient Egyptian society. And yet, even as the civilization crumbled, the legacy of the Wedjat lived on, influencing neighboring cultures and laying the groundwork for future interpretations of the all-seeing eye. The solar gaze, the Eye of Ra. While the Eye of Horus focused on balance and protection, another variant arose within Egyptian mythology, the Eye of Ra. Unlike the nurturing gaze of Horus, the Eye of Ra carried a fiercer connotation. As the sun god's vigilant sentinel, it symbolized creation and destruction, embodying Ra's ability to bring life through sunlight while punishing those who dared defy him. Legends describe the Eye of Ra detaching itself from Ra's body to seek vengeance against enemies, only to be pacified and returned, bringing renewal to the world. This duality, creation paired with annihilation, is central to understanding why the all-seeing eye resonated so profoundly across generations. It wasn't just about watching over people, it was about enforcing moral order. Those who acted virtuously felt sheltered beneath its gaze, while wrongdoers feared its wrath. Over time, this dichotomy between benevolence and judgment would shape how other cultures adopted and adapted the symbol. Beyond Egypt, universal themes of divine oversight as trade routes expanded and empires rose and fell, the concept of an all-seeing deity spread far beyond Egypt's borders. Civilizations across Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome incorporated similar motifs into their own belief systems. In Babylonian lore, for example, the god Marduk was often depicted with multiple eyes, signifying his omnipresence. Similarly, Greek philosophers spoke of the cosmic eye that observed human actions, ensuring adherence to natural law. These parallels suggest that the idea of a higher power watching over humanity wasn't unique to any single culture, it was a shared archetype, born from humanity's innate desire to make sense of the unknown. One particularly intriguing example comes from Hinduism, where the third eye of Lord Shiva serves as a bridge between mortal and divine realms. Positioned on Shiva's forehead, this mystical eye represents enlightenment, intuition, and the destruction of ignorance. Like the Egyptian eyes, it combines protective qualities with transformative power. When opened, it can burn away illusions, revealing ultimate truth. Yet unlike the passive gaze of Horus or Ra, Shiva's third eye radiates active energy, capable of unleashing catastrophic forces if provoked. These cross-cultural connections highlight something remarkable. despite vast differences in geography, language, and tradition, humans have consistently turned to the imagery of an all-seeing eye to express complex ideas about morality, fate, and divinity. But here's the twist: this widespread adoption laid the foundation for later reinterpretations that strayed far from their original intent. What began as a symbol of hope and guidance would eventually morph into something darker, more enigmatic. Transition to monotheism, a new lens. Fast forward to the rise of monotheistic religions, particularly Christianity, and we see the all-seeing eye undergo yet another transformation. By the Middle Ages, artists began depicting God's omniscience using a singular, unblinking eye enclosed within a triangle. This geometric framework didn't appear randomly, it held deep theological significance. The triangle symbolized the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, while the eye served as a reminder of God's constant vigilance over creation. At first glance, this adaptation might seem like a natural progression. After all, many Christian doctrines emphasize divine oversight, echoing earlier themes of moral accountability. However, subtle shifts occurred in how the symbol was perceived. While ancient cultures viewed the all-seeing eye as a source of comfort and protection, medieval Europe introduced an element of fear. Preachers warned congregations that nothing escaped God's notice, not even their innermost thoughts. This emphasis on surveillance created a psychological dynamic that lingered long after the Renaissance faded, and here lies the paradox: though rooted in love and guidance, the all-seeing eye began acquiring undertones of scrutiny and control. Little did anyone realize at the time, but this shift would pave the way for entirely new interpretations centuries later, interpretations that would spark debates about freedom, authority, and hidden agendas. The all-seeing eye, the Christian era. As the ancient world gave way to new ideologies and belief systems, the symbol of the all-seeing eye found a fresh canvas in Christianity. It wasn't just carried forward, it was reimagined, repurposed, and infused with meaning that reflected the spiritual priorities of an era defined by faith, morality, and divine authority. From pagan roots to sacred iconography. In its transition from pagan traditions to Christian symbolism, the all-seeing eye became a representation of God's omnipresence, a constant reminder that nothing escapes his gaze. Early Christians adopted this motif to emphasize their core tenet, that God is ever watchful, guiding humanity through trials while holding everyone accountable for their actions. Unlike the pluralistic deities of ancient Egypt or Greece, the monotheistic God demanded absolute devotion, and what better way to convey that than through an unblinking eye? Artists during the Middle Ages began depicting the all-seeing eye enclosed within a triangle, a geometric shape rich with theological significance. This design adorned manuscripts, cathedrals, and altarpieces, embedding itself deeply into medieval Christian culture. But here's the twist: while the imagery remained consistent, its interpretation varied widely depending on who was looking at it. For devout believers, the all-seeing eye offered comfort. It reassured them that they were under divine protection, especially during times of hardship like plagues or invasions. However, for those on the fringes of society, the poor, the outcasts, the sinners, it could also evoke fear. Priests often used sermons to hammer home the idea that every action, no matter how small or private, was being observed by God. Nothing is hidden from his sight, they would proclaim, instilling both reverence and dread among congregations. As the world transitioned from the shadowy corridors of medieval mysticism to the bright, rational light of the Enlightenment, symbols once tied to divine authority began to take on new meanings. This was an age of questioning, of challenging long-held beliefs and seeking truth through reason, science, and individual freedom. And it was during this transformative period that the all-seeing eye found itself embraced not just as a religious emblem but as a philosophical tool for understanding humanity's place in the universe. From divine providence to human reason. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Europe was ablaze with revolutionary ideas. Thinkers like John Locke, Voltaire, and Immanuel Kant championed concepts such as liberty, equality, and the pursuit of knowledge. Gone were the days when people passively accepted doctrines handed down by kings or clergy. Instead, they demanded explanations rooted in logic and evidence. In this intellectual climate, the all-seeing eye evolved into something far more secular, a representation of enlightenment itself. And no longer confined to depictions of God's omniscience, the eye became a metaphor for the power of human perception, It symbolized the ability to see beyond surface-level truths and uncover deeper realities. Philosophers argued that just as the eye observes the external world, so too should the mind scrutinize ideas, institutions, and traditions. The unblinking gaze of the all-seeing eye now urged individuals to question authority, reject superstition, and embrace progress, yet, despite its newfound association with reason, the symbol retained traces of its spiritual origins. Many Enlightenment thinkers still believed in a higher power, a benevolent creator who had endowed humans with the capacity for rational thought. To them, the all-seeing eye wasn't merely a secular icon, it was a bridge between the divine and the human, reminding viewers that wisdom came from both observation and inspiration. Freemasonry and the birth of secrecy. Perhaps no group embraced the all-seeing eye quite like the Freemasons. By the 18th century, this secretive fraternal organization had risen to prominence across Europe and America. Its members included scientists, philosophers, politicians, and artists, all united by their belief in self-improvement, moral virtue, and the pursuit of universal truths. For Freemasons, the all-seeing eye took on a dual role. It represented both divine guidance and personal accountability. Enclosed within a triangle, the eye symbolized what Masons called the great architect of the universe, a non-denominational term for the supreme being who governed existence. But unlike earlier interpretations that emphasized judgment and surveillance, the Masonic version focused on introspection. Members were encouraged to view the all-seeing eye as a mirror reflecting their own actions and intentions. Were they living up to their potential? Were they contributing positively to society? These questions became central to Masonic teachings. Outside the lodges, however, perceptions of Freemasonry, and by extension, the all-seeing eye, were far less charitable. To many ordinary citizens, the secrecy surrounding Masonic rituals seemed suspicious at best and sinister at worst. Rumors spread that Masons were plotting to overthrow governments, control economies, or establish a new world order. While these accusations lacked substance, they planted seeds of distrust that would grow over time. Political symbolism and the Founding Fathers. Nowhere did the all-seeing eye gain greater visibility, or controversy, than in the fledgling United States of America. When the Great Seal of the United States was designed in 1776, one side featured an unfinished pyramid topped by the all-seeing eye. Beneath it lay the Latin motto Annuit Coeptis, meaning, He approves our undertakings, while above it read Novus Ordo Seclorum, translating to, A New Order of the Ages. To the Founding Fathers, the symbolism was clear. The pyramid represented strength and durability, while its incomplete state signified the nation's ongoing growth and aspirations. The all-seeing eye hovering above served as a reminder of divine providence guiding the young republic toward prosperity. Yet even then, whispers of hidden agendas began to circulate. Critics wondered why a supposedly Christian nation would adopt a symbol so closely associated with Freemasonry, a movement accused of harboring anti-religious sentiments. These suspicions only intensified over time. Decades later, when the Great Seal appeared on the back of the U.S. dollar bill in 1935, conspiracy theories reached fever pitch. Skeptics pointed to the pyramid and the eye as proof of a shadowy elite manipulating global events. According to some accounts, the design hinted at plans for centralized control disguised as benevolence. Whether true or not, the imagery left an indelible mark on popular culture, forever linking the all-seeing eye with themes of surveillance and subterfuge. A double-edged legacy. So how did a symbol meant to inspire hope and enlightenment become entangled with fears of manipulation and domination? Part of the answer lies in its versatility. The all-seeing eye could represent anything from divine protection to societal oversight, depending on who wielded it. During the Enlightenment, it stood for reason and progress. But those same principles could also justify authoritarian measures if taken too far. Consider the rise of utilitarian philosophies, which prioritized collective welfare over individual freedoms. Proponents argued that maximizing happiness required careful regulation of behavior, a task made easier by constant observation. Jeremy Bentham's infamous panopticon, a prison design allowing guards to monitor inmates without being seen, exemplified this mindset. Though intended to deter crime, the structure eerily mirrored the omnipresent gaze of the all-seeing eye,